How can you find your perfect whiskey? Buying a bottle of whiskey for yourself or a friend can be an expensive commitment. So here are a few pointers to make sure you don't end up with the wrong bottle. You'll be glad to hear that finding your perfect whiskey starts with tasting as many different bottles as possible. But there's a few more layers to it than that. You're not going to start talking about who your favourite band or musician is without listening to a lot of music, right? And whiskey's no different. Of course, a bottle of whiskey is expensive, so you don't always want to buy a whole one just to get a taste of what's inside. But you might not have much to go on apart from a nice looking label or some general idea of what the whiskey might be like. So for me, it's better to try a little whiskey a lot of the time. That means that your first step should be trying to get along to tasting events, like the ones the Scotch Malt Whisky Society holds regularly at our members' rooms in Edinburgh, Glasgow and London. At any of these events, you'll get a great chance to sample a fantastic variety of different styles of whiskey, and that's going to help you find out what kind of flavour profile you're more into. By being able to sip several whiskies at one sitting, you can start to see what characteristics appeal to you more than others. Once you're able to confidently say what types of flavour you like or maybe don't like, you're going to be set up perfectly to move on to the next stage. This is where you can really take your whiskey experience to another level. Now that you've got a solid base for what each flavour is like, you can now start to understand what journey each bottle has gone on to achieve these flavours. You should start looking at things like how distilleries use their fermentation time, whether it's a peated or unpeated malt that they're using, maybe it's a washback, which is wood or steel, or any other distinctive characteristics that contribute to the flavour profile of their whiskey. Maybe one of the most important things to look at is how the whiskey is matured, because that plays a huge role in influencing a whiskey's flavour. Maybe that sweet honeyed vanilla note is what appeals to you most. So in that case, seek out whiskies that have matured exclusively in ex-bourbon wood. Or do you prefer the notes of raisins and Christmas cake associated with an ex-Pedro Ximénez sherry cask maturation? It can of course be a lot to take in, and it's easy to get overwhelmed with the masses of variations in distillation and maturation. And that's partly why the Society categorises all of our whiskies into one of 12 flavour profiles, which are nice and easy to understand at a surface level and will help you to find what appeals to your palate most. Now you'll be able to tell whether you're drawn more to a lighter style of whiskey from an ex-bourbon cask, or a richer dram for an ex-sherry butt, or maybe you're tempted towards those smoky, peaty, or even more medicinal style of whiskies. It's also a good idea to keep your own tasting notes so you can keep track of what you've been drinking, what you thought of it at the time, and whether it was worth the price. So why is going to all that effort worth it? Well, now you can easily look at a bottle, check out how it's been matured and what characteristics that aging process would suggest, and make a reasonably informed choice about whether it's the right bottle for you or not. The beauty of getting into whiskey is that none of this is fixed. And even when you do get a better idea of what your favourite whiskey is, it's probably going to keep on changing. I've heard of loads of people who were initially really into the bigger, powerful, peaty Islay whiskies, couldn't get enough of them, but then their palates start to change and evolve, and they moved on to the more delicate, complex, unpeated Speyside styles. Try enough different whiskies, and you'll probably find that instead of coming up with one favourite dram, you'll be more likely to seek out different styles for different situations. If I'm up the hill with a hip flask, celebrating reaching the top of a Monroe, give me a powerful island peated number that really stands up to the outdoor elements. If I'm sat at home, relaxing with a piece of chocolate, give me a classic ex-bourbon Speysider to let it melt in the mouth and accentuate the whiskey's sweet vanilla notes. And if there's a cheese board doing the rounds after a lovely meal, I'll be reaching for something from a sherry cask to bring those notes of dried fruits and a bit of spice. Ultimately, it's something of a movable feast, and it's all about the journey, not the destination. The search for your favourite whiskey might be like a quest for the Holy Grail or the search for Shangri-La. A lifetime's work, but time very well spent.